morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at the deck which could be the next great Pokemon TCG deck. The deck out of Fusion Strike about which we should all be getting a little bit excited about. It's Mew VMAX. This one's been doing fairly well over in Japan. It keeps popping up. I follow a whole bunch of Japanese shops on Twitter, and this keeps popping up as a deck that is winning local tournaments. And sure, the deck list I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is from a smaller tournament, but that doesn't mean it's not a good deck. And as I always say with these deck list videos when these are new decks coming out of Japan, don't necessarily take this as this is exactly how this deck should be played. Take it as here is a good list to start off from. So if you want to be testing, if you want to be seeing how the list is being played, this is a really good starting point. And speaking of starting point, we need to talk about Mew VMAX. And I'm honestly pretty delighted here because we've actually got an English scan of this one. Yay! Although to be fair, we do need to start off with Mew V, and we don't have an English scan of Mew V. And honestly, there really isn't that much great stuff about Mew V. For one Psychic Energy, you can attach an energy from your deck to one of your Fusion Strike Pokemon, but you're putting an energy on Mew to accelerate an energy. Unless you can use this multiple times, you might as well just be attaching the energy to the Pokemon in the first place. For 2 energy, however, you do 70 damage and you may shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck, and that one actually could be quite useful for preventing KOs and things of that nature. Because if we go and take a look at Mew VMAX, I mean, if you've been around the card game for a while now, you didn't really need to be told what Mew VMAX was going to do. It's got Cross Fusion Strike, which for 2 colorless energy says, choose one of your bench Fusion Strike Pokemon's attacks, and use it as this attack. It's a box deck. Once again, Mew comes along and is copying attacks of other Pokemon, just like it's done pretty much for the entire time it's been good. Every time Mew tends to be good, this is basically what it does. Unless it's protecting the bench, I suppose. So this is nice. And then, of course, we go back to Mew V, and this all makes perfect sense, because what you're essentially doing with Mew V is using it as an escape. If your free prize Mew VMAX is about to get KO'd, you use Mew V's attack, deal 70 damage, and then you shovel Mew VMAX and all the stuff attached to it into your deck, so you're not giving up that free prize Pokemon, which is nice. And to answer the obvious question, no, you do not need the correct energy here, and that's absolutely huge. The rule has always been, if it says you need the correct energy, you need the correct energy. If it doesn't say you need the correct energy, you don't need the correct energy. So here, it doesn't matter what the cost of the Pokemon's attack you're copying is, you just need to have 2 colorless energy on here. Cool. So what kind of attacks are we copying? Now for me, one of my favourites, and Baby Daisy will be very pleased, because her spirit Pokemon Latias is going to be a pretty good one here. Now Latias has got a rather nice attack, that for 1 fire, 1 psychic, 1 colourless energy, but again, you're copying it with Mew for 2 colourless, you deal 70 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Pokemon VMAX. So against a VMAX deck, this can not necessarily lock your opponent out, they'll still have Pokemon V, but it can force your opponent to try and fight you with Pokemon V, which a lot of the time are nowhere near as good. That sounds pretty nice. We've also got Meloetta coming in here, and Meloetta's got a very nice attack for 1 psychic, 1 colourless energy. You deal 70 damage for all of your fusion energy attached to all of your fusion Pokemon, which is wonderful. Well, actually attached to all your Pokemon in play, which is rather nice. But the point is, with 4 Fusion Strike energy in play, you're dealing 280 damage, which is clearly a fairly ridiculous thing, if I'm honest with you. This adds up extremely quickly. And as a side note, obviously Fusion Strike energy can only actually be attached to Fusion Strike Pokemon. So even though it is 70 for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all of your Pokemon, actually, they can only go on Fusion Strike Pokemon anyway. Never mind. So you've got Meloetta and Latias, they're both pretty nice options. But they're not the only ones we've got here. We've also got ourselves Oricorio. Although I'm not so convinced Oricorio is such a good attacker. It is the Fire Oricorio and it's got a really nice ability that says your Fusion Strike Pokemon in play take 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. Now you can't stack this, it only works once, no matter how many you've got in play, so we're only playing one in the deck, but this is still a really, really nice option for reducing damage done to you, and especially if you're blocking VMAXs. And then you're saying that their Pokemon V do 20 less damage, that is going to add up very, very quickly, and I am a very, very big fan of this. The attack for 2 energy, again, whether that's Oricorio or Mew, drops 5 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like, and this is actually really nice, because if your opponent's Pokemon is either very weak, or has few HP remaining, you can use this attack to drop a few damage counters and get that KO. Now, don't forget, Mew VMAX itself does have an attack, 130 damage. And interestingly enough, you don't need 2 Psychic Energy if you've got a Mew VMAX on your bench, because essentially what you do here is you use Cross Fusion Strike to copy a benched Mew VMAX's Max Miracle, so you don't have to have the 2 energy that are Psychic as long as you've got a Mew VMAX on your bench. Does 130 and goes through any effects on the defending Pokemon, which basically means that you're going to be able to go through anything which is trying to block you, which is clearly a very nice thing indeed. Now, the other attacker we've got here is Genesect, and I rather suspect that Genesect is going to be your bread and butter attacker here, and Genesect is absolutely ridiculously over the top nuts. Firstly, it's got an ability that says you can draw cards once per turn until you've got as many cards in hand as you've got fusion Pokemon in play, which hopefully is going to be 6. But unlike a lot of other abilities, it's not limited to 1 per turn, just once per Genesect per turn. So if you've got multiple Genesect out, you can use this ability multiple times and have a ridiculous draw engine. You've then got free energy 210 and you can't attack next turn, but obviously with Mew, it's just 2 colourless energy and you're dealing 210. And like I've said, this is your bread and butter, your ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill, your starter for 10 attack. And it's very, very nice indeed. Worth pointing out, the Mew VMAX does have free retreat, so you can essentially use this attack, and even though you can't attack next turn, you can just retreat and go from there. Nice. There are a couple of other Pokemon we see here incidentally. We've actually just got regular Mew. That's the one that protects your bench. Unfortunately, that has rotated out over here. I am sorry. And then we've got Marshadow, the one that gets rid of stadiums. But again, that one has also rotated out over here. Once again, I am rather sorry. I don't think it's a particularly big deal, either of them going wrong, but you will have to replace them because they have gone and rotated out over here. I am sorry. Now, in terms of energy, obviously we've got Psychic Energy because, you know, this is largely a Psychic deck. And we get ourselves Fusion Strike Energy because that will actually count as any energy on a Fusion Strike Pokemon. And let's face it, this is largely Fusion Strike Pokemon. And then the last energy we've got here is Weakness Guard Energy. Now, annoyingly, again, this one has gone and rotated out, which is a little bit sad, because obviously what it does is it gets rid of your weakness, and with Mew running around, one of the things is that you've got stuff like, I don't know, Umbreon VMAX as an example, which sees a bunch of play and will hit you for weakness. It's not ideal, honestly. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it is, shall we say, far from ideal. That going away is a little bit sad, but you can put other energy instead. I'm quite a fan of Capture Energy here, because then you can get more Genesect out nice and quickly, and that will allow you to draw more with your Genesect, which I think is pretty gosh darned important. Now, moving over into your trainer cards here, there are a bunch that we would expect. Obviously, we've got 4 Quick Ball here to go and search out your basic Pokemon. Obviously, we've got 4 Fog Crystal to search out your basic Psychic Pokemon and Energy. That should pretty much be a given. Similarly, in terms of supporter cards, we've got ourselves Marnie, which like every deck plays, and we got ourselves Boss's Orders to drag Pokemon off the bench to try and KO them, and we even got ourselves a Professor's Research here because it's really fast and aggressive in terms of drawing cards. The other supporter we've got, in addition to the 3 Marnie, the 3 Boss's Orders, and the 1 Professor's Research, is Elisa's Radiance. And do remember, you're not as reliant on draw supporters here because you've got Genesect being a ridiculous draw engine. So you can afford to play more Marnie and Elisa's Radiance and Boss's Orders and leave Professor's Research out a little bit because you're not actually as reliant on your draw supporters because Genesect is so good. Elisa's Radiance lets you search your deck for 2 Fusion Strike Energy and attach them to different Pokemon. It's clearly nuts in a deck like this, gets the extra energy out, and life is good. The other 4 we've got here is Power Tablet. Power Tablet lets your Fusion Strike Pokemon do an extra 30 damage this turn. Given that you're attacking with pretty much exclusively Fusion Strike Pokemon, that's clearly something which is extremely important, so it's something we do need to take a little bit of account of. It's kind of big, honestly. There's a few little one-offs which are in there as nice little text. We got a Fan of Waves to get rid of a special energy and all of that. These are largely going to be a little bit of personal preference, whether you want a bit of extra consistency, a few extra tricks, etc. But we do have a couple of Great Ball here. It's just extra Pokemon draw, right? It's the kind of thing that's going to be moderately important, so that sounds like fun. Luckily, that one has not gone and rotated out, so that's rather nice. And we got ourselves a couple of Escape Rope because you need to be able to switch, but also you can force your opponent to switch, which can actually end up giving you a huge advantage, which is rather lovely. And then in terms of stadiums, we've got a Path to the Peak, which might look a little bit weird, given that Path to the Peak turns off the abilities of Pokemon with rule boxes, and Genesect here is clearly a big part of your deck. It's the only Pokemon you're actually playing as a 4 of here, other than Mew V, which is not ideal given that you're turning off its ability, which is nuts. But the theory essentially here is there are going to be some decks that are all built around abilities. And if you are set up and rolling and you've got a couple of attackers, you can actually play a Path to the Peak to slow your opponent down. If you've had a good start to the game and you've got Mew set up doing 210 every turn, well, you can afford to turn off abilities for a little bit, and the worst case scenario is your opponent replaces a stadium and you get access to your Genesect again. That is not the end of the world. We've then just got 1 copy of Old Cemetery. When a player attaches an energy from their hand to their non-psychic Pokemon, you place 2 damage counters. And you might be attaching with stuff like Genesect here, so it's not perfect. But again, it's one of those where if it's going to hurt you too much, obviously don't play it. I love this deck. It's not for me personally. I can't see myself ever playing this at a tournament, but it makes me happy to know that Mew is back and doing Mew things, and that is really rather lovely. And now we got a nice list we can use as a starting point. Yay! And I know a couple of the cards have rotated out, but Mew and Marshadow are not big deals. Weakness card energy is easily taken out for something like Capture Energy or any other energy you want to use, and then all the others are just occasional text. You will be fine. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you think about this deck. I want to know if you're buying it as a legitimate threat, or whether you think it's not going to be as good as Mew has been in the past. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.